Alright, I think we're live.
Sounds good.
Alright, so last time we found out the identity of the hooded figure. Is Eustace the same hooded figure as the one in the hallway? We don't know that yet. We just saw her tumble down. We had a heart-to-heart with Flora. That was pretty sweet. I really like that exchange. That's one of my favorites. Trying to run away from the Abbey and decide what she wants to do with her life because she seems like she didn't have much of a choice. I don't think we know her circumstances yet about why she was sent here. I don't know, but it seems like she didn't have a choice. As for Catherine with a K, she didn't have much of a choice either, but she gave us some details about it. She said she pissed off some nobles, and we don't really know what that entails yet, but we have a little more information about Catherine with a K's circumstances, about why she's here. This seems to be like your non-traditional monastery abbey, where the nuns don't seem to be wanting to be here out of faith or love for the Bible or passion. They seemed kind of like it was their only option, because Catherine with a K even said it was death or be banished to an abbey in the middle of nowhere. That's why she's at this particular abbey, because it's far away from civilization. And there was a lot of talk about what benefit this abbey even has, for with the closest town being like half a day away or something like that, like quite a few miles away. So what purpose does this abbey hold? They're not really too much like a scholarly type. There's not really too many like people who study here. Maybe Catherine with a C had a lot of influence towards it. I'm not entirely sure yet. There was Flora saying she wants to run away. Margaret has a whole conversation with her lute and her origins and how she feels kind of not loved, not paid attention to, how she feels invisible without Catherine with a C there. And I think she said her closest friend was Catherine with a K, and that they got along pretty well. We didn't get too much into backstory, but she said that she just feels a bit isolated, and that she also misses Catherine with a C greatly. A lot of people missing Catherine with a C, understandably so.
When all you know is like 12 people, and then
Yeah.
one of them dies, especially in such a gruesome manner.
Yeah. We were interrupted, actually, we were questioning Catherine with a K about the cloak from the stable boy, and then we were interrupted by the ghastly figure. And then the ghastly figure trips over themselves and falls over and reveals themselves to be Eustace. So that was a bit interesting.
Yeah, who just coincidentally knows that Hedwig was asking questions.
Yep.
And then Hedwig, for once in her life, decides to be like, "Oh, I'm not scared of you."
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, is very sus to me. I'm almost suspicious that it's a dream or something.
That was very odd, how brave she became out of nowhere. I don't think it's too out of character for her. She stood up to the superior before, but it's definitely a bit more... It is a bit suspicious, I will agree. Yeah. It's not out of nowhere, but it is still sudden.
The sword is not flaming this time.
Yes, that is true. It's not flaming. There's no goat. We got a lot of ghost stories last time. We got some stories about hooves in the hallway, hoof prints in the hallway leading to a figure. Maybe that's something related to a goat. We're not entirely sure. We know that like a goat in general is just like pretty synonymous with the devil and symbolism and stuff like that, while a lamb or sheep is kind of closer to God and Christ. So it's interesting that the goats are being brought up so much, especially if it was a ploy. I brought up to Leo yesterday that it was kind of interesting that Eustace was using Darcy's visions as a method to pull her little scheme on Hedwig. She was kind of using Darcy's visions as a way to scare Hedwig off, to make it seem like her visions were real. Does Eustace believe in Darcy's visions? It seems like she does, but she's still seeming to make them want to come true. I mean, not want to come true, but want to make it feel like it was real. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a whole thing. There may be some things that I'm saying that are a bit misleading because of the information you guys have. So I might know some of the answers to some of the questions I'm posing.
I never would have done that in our last playthrough. I don't know what you're talking about.
There is the whole thing. I don't know if we mentioned this off stream or on stream or at the end of the stream, but there was this whole thing about we don't know whether Darcy is having hallucinogenic induced visions or if they are actually visions from God. It's kind of left up in the air, but either way, it seems to be triggered by the drugs, by the plants and stuff she is taking, whether they're hallucinogenics or not. So they could very well be visions from God that are just kind of like triggered by that, or they could just be straight up hallucinations high on drugs, because we don't know much about what Darcy grows in her garden.
Or she could be crazy without either.
Yeah, that's very true. We got a lot of development with Angela. We got a lot of development with Angela and her whole thing about I do not hate you, Hedwig. That scene is fantastic. I really like her character a lot. And yeah. I'm just excited to see where all this goes. I know where some things go, but not where everything goes. So I'm just intrigued to see what you guys think happens and stuff. Any theories?
I would never think.
Fair enough. Alright, let's continue then. Eustace, it was you?
Yes. Wait a minute? So you're telling me Hedwig's ghost prank was actually your prank? That's right.
Eustace winced as she pulled herself to her feet.
My most elaborate ever.
I know you enjoy tormenting people with your practical jokes, but this was a bit much.
Hang on. I don't enjoy tormenting people. That was terrifying. I was so confused.
I was dumbfounded. Part of me was relieved to discover that the ghost I had been seeing was not a ghost at all, but the other part of me was feeling something indescribable towards Eustace. Eustace? Why?
Well, that's a good question. Mostly because I thought it would be funny. Rather large miscalculation there, I'm afraid. You thought it was funny the first time. I thought it was funny when I thought this character was something Hedwig made up. Now that I know you actually went and dressed up like a nasty devil and scared her, and now all of us witless, I'm reevaluating. Oh, was Hedwig right when she told us? Did you really kill a goat?
Eustace looked at me with a cold but clearly wounded expression.
I think perhaps that Hedwig was so overcome with shock that she saw something in the shadows that wasn't there. Entirely reasonable, I should think. You were waving a flaming sword around, according to her description.
That's a point. No fire this time. Or did Hedwig imagine that too?
It seemed like a waste of oil. Not to mention, it's not good for the blade.
Eustace beckoned for Adela to pass her the sword back. Adela's eyes narrowed.
Absolutely not. Come on. I'm the sacrist. I've got to put it back. I do not think this is behavior befitting a sacrist. And disrespecting Sister Catherine's sword in this manner. Shameful. We should tell the superior about this. You're overreacting slightly, I think. I disagree.
Catherine with a seized sword? I was so angry that I couldn't help but blurt this thought out as soon as it entered my head.
Did you not know about this, Sister Hedwig?
I scrambled to say something that would allay my any suspicions. I spoke to Angela about what happened to Catherine with the Sea, and she said it was a delivery man's sword.
Angela thinks she is smarter than she is. Although, why she would try to deceive you about that, I have no idea.
So, it really was Catherine with the Seas?
Well, it certainly wasn't the delivery boys. Do you know how much a sword costs? Especially one of that size.
So, how on earth was it Catherine with the Seas?
It wasn't actually hers. She just liked to borrow it from the library.
And you let her?
I refuse to be questioned on this by someone who barely knows me and who didn't know her at all. You are not in a position to act superior to anyone right now, Eustace.
I don't know if we need to tell Soup, but that was not on Eustace.
Margaret, I know for a fact you and Catherine used to plan and execute far worse.
No.
I'm innocent. Catherine the Second with a C?
I think you should calm down, Eustace. I'm sorry we didn't find this prank particularly amusing.
You threatened to kill poor Hedwig. I pretended to threaten her.
Oh, well, in that case...
Remind me, Margaret, what happened to the Superior before ours?
Interesting. How long have they been around? How long has the Superior been in charge? That was nothing like this, and you know it.
Yes, it was significantly worse. What are you talking about?
Nothing. It was before your time. And before Eustace's, for that matter. Interesting. So, she should keep it out of her mouth.
I heard enough about it. Straight from you and her.
Stop making this about me. This is about you and your stupid ghost costume. Waving a sword in Hedwig's face, honestly. How could you? If beggars believe that you'd attempt to flip this around on anyone else. Eustace looked around the room, but nobody offered any support. She was breathing heavily and looked as if she was about to cry. Once she was certain nobody was coming to her rescue, she focused on me.
Hedwig?
I had struck her so hard that my hand stung. Eustace's face was redder than the evening's wine. I realized that I must have scraped her face with my fingernails during the swipe, as there was just a touch of blood on her cheeks. I half expected her eyes to start welling up with tears, but she just stood there. Perhaps she was dumbstruck. You are cruel, Eustace. Cruel and nasty. Did you enjoy making me feel small?
Hedwig.
I instinctively raised my hand again, although this time I was held back by several of the women behind me. Easy now. Have you ever said anything earnest to me, Eustace? Have you spoken to me truthfully, even once?
Of course I have.
How can I trust you? Ever? I tried futilely to lunge at her again, but I was not strong enough to overcome the several people gripping my arms and shoulders.
I don't know.
I don't like you.
That is fair.
Let's all calm down now, yeah?
Yes. Yes, I think that's quite enough theater for the night. What's going on?
Tonight's outing at the Misericorde has concluded, I think.
Blame Eustace, I suppose. It is getting quite late, though. I'll be getting on.
She slunk away from the group and out the door too quickly for me to object. The other women who had been holding on to me finally loosened their grips, all except for Moira, who patted me on the shoulder consolingly.
Let's get you to bed, Hedwig.
I nodded, but I kept looking at Eustace. She looked pathetic. She was not openly crying, but I swear I heard a sniffle as Moira piloted me past her and out of the room. The others were following suit, muttering to each other in quiet conversation. Once we were out in the hallway, I realized just how stuffy and airless the Misericorde had felt. I took a breath of fresh air and felt a slight pang of regret, enough to make me turn around to see if Eustace had left the room. Moira tugged me away quickly.
I think that's enough for tonight, eh?
I don't know. I think I should apologize.
Well, you can do that tomorrow. Right now, what I think you need is some rest.
I hit her quite hard.
As you well should have, if I'm being frank. What a horrible practical joke.
There was a slight twinkling sound and her foot collided with an empty tincture bottle I had left on the bed earlier.
Oops! Sorry.
Oh, no, it's my fault. I must have fallen off the bed.
What was in it?
She shut the door behind her and sat me down on her bed just like she had on my first day out of my cell. Nothing, not anymore at least. It was something Darcy gave me earlier.
Oh, best to be careful drinking anything Darcy gives you.
It was actually rather helpful. She said it would give me confidence.
Well, we'll have to tell her it was a rousing success, won't we?
We both chuckled.
What a day!
Yes, quite a day. I smiled weakly at her for a moment, but I couldn't maintain the charade for any longer. I burst into tears. Moira made a sympathetic cooing sound and put her hands on my shoulders. I shrugged them off quickly. I'd had quite enough of people attempting to restrain me for one night. Instead, she offered the front of her robe for me to dry my eyes on, which I did accept.
There. I think this was all a bit much for you in one go, perhaps.
Is it always like this? It feels like the whole Abbey just fell apart, and it's all my fault.
This definitely wasn't one of our better nights, but no, I can think of worse.
Really?
Don't forget someone died not too long ago. I think that might still top you having a little too much to drink, don't you?
Silly me.
But even so, we have some colorful personalities here. It's not the first time we've had a minor clash.
But I hit her. I had no idea I was even capable. I'm a freak. I should never have left my cell.
Marta's stronger than she looks, you know?
What?
I'm also confused.
Marta? We hit Eustace.
I'm assuming that it's setting up for like someone, like there's been another scuffle or something. Like maybe Marta hit Eustace or something. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He's clapped Flora on the cheek more times than I can count. And I'm sure she'll smack Adela one of these days if they keep arguing about the sherry.
Oh.
And, well, I think Darcy's gotten into it with Catherine before. The first one, with a K. Although that might have just been under the influence of a particularly bad mushroom.
That doesn't count.
Details are different, but I'll be honest with you. I think people mostly remember the boiling over, not what was in the pot.
Still.
Would you believe that I've gotten slapped a few times?
What? Why? She chuckled again and leaned down to give me a kiss on the forehead. So condescending.
No. I'm happy to gossip, but I think I have the right to withhold gossip about myself. Wouldn't you agree?
I suppose that makes sense.
You can ask Eustace about it, I'm sure. Maybe that's a good way to start mending that bridge. Or you could ask Angela. I'm sure she'd have a particularly dramatic version to share.
I groaned into her robe. Oh dear, I have to work with Eustace.
We all have to work together, Hedwig.
How? In the same room. It's going to be horrible.
You'll find a way. We always do.
She gently tugged her robe away from me. There was an embarrassing soggy patch in her chest, visible even to the black fabric in the dim moonlight.
I'll see you at the service tomorrow?
Of course.
Good. Get some sleep. You'll feel better in the morning. I promise.
She made to leave. When she opened the door, I could hear Angela commenting to her from the landing.
It would seem I left just before things got interesting. Yes. Well, there's always next time.
She shut the door behind her, and their conversation became too muffled to focus on. I collapsed into the bed, spread eagle, and then half-heartedly attempted to get into it properly. I stared at the ceiling, unsure what to do. It was late, but there was absolutely no chance I was going to fall asleep anytime soon. Something felt wrong inside me. Despite Moira's assurances that things would continue as usual, I felt as if I had just stepped across the threshold, equally as dramatic as the one I had crossed when I left my cell. Eustace's cruel joke had thrown so much into the past few weeks into question, but nonetheless I felt a bit ill. I rubbed the hand that I had struck her cheek with. I could feel the sting still lingering. She had terrified me. Not just me, but the entire room full of women. For what? All in the service of some hazing ritual? The superior had warned everyone about that. I realized that she would have only mentioned it if it had been a problem prior. Perhaps this was typical. Perhaps I was unaccustomed to the space of how occupied, unprepared for how adversarial and mean-spirited it was. As it was, there was no denying that over the past few weeks, and tonight especially, I had observed a community on the rocks. This wasn't just Eustace and I. It was Angela and Catherine, Adela and Charity, Flora and, well, everyone else. Those weren't the only conflicts either. All in all, it seemed like this place was some kind of nexus of misery and resentment. I was restless, sighing deeply. I got up off the bed and quietly crept into the door. There was no conversation emanating from any of the rooms, or the hallway. It seemed as if everyone had succeeded where I could not. I did find my best to stay silent, and as I collected a cricket from the mantel and lit a candle in the fireplace and headed out for a stroll. It was quite cold out now. I thanked God for my cozy robes. The thick woolen fabric did an admirable job of protecting me from the elements, and I could ball up the extra fabric of my oversized sleeve to keep my free hand warm. I wandered back and forth across the landing a few times. I was a lot more confident spending my time alone outside now that Eustace had outed herself as my mysterious stalker. I descended the stairs nearest the dorms, and did a few slow laps in the cloister, deep in thought. Should I tell the superior? I felt uneasy about this. Margaret and a few others had seemed to balk at Adela's idea of involving her. Then again, I would have to report to her sooner or later, and it would be hard to pretend nothing had happened, especially when I made not even getting an answer from Catherine with a K and I had promised to make my priority. Oh well, it had not been for my lack of trying. Perhaps I could corner Catherine with a K before service tomorrow? She hadn't seemed unwilling to talk at all, just unwilling to do it in the company of others, which I do understand. On the other hand, what if Eustace had handed me the evidence I needed anyway? Who else could have beheaded someone but the woman with access to that sword? How cavalier Eustace had been with her threats too.
Cease your meddling. Yeah, I know.
In retrospect, Eustace's attempt at a booming, authoritative voice had been a little unconvincing.
Hey, I resent that.
I had been swept up in the moment, I suppose. Nonetheless, her threat seemed quite targeted. If it was not the first time, Eustace had advised me to keep my nose clean. We took a turn of the cloister and into the path between mostly unused rooms and buildings the superior had led me past the way we went to the hospitalum. The brisk night air was doing something helpful for my thoughts. At the very least, I wanted to stretch my legs further. Eustace controlled access to the sword. There was no doubt about that. Thinking more on the situation, was there really any other reason needed to finger her as the perpetrator? Catherine with a C had been beheaded, and the wretched tool had been left in the cloister as an ill omen. I had no idea why Eustace would want to kill Catherine with a C, but was that my responsibility to find out? I had been charged with finding Catherine's killer. Catherine with a C had been killed with a sword. The one sword in the Abbey resided under lock and key, a key that Eustace controlled. What else was there to it?
And the superior.
Yeah. As I wandered the path towards the outer wall of the Abbey, I became surer and surer of this line of reasoning. Why did the why matter? I was not here to judge. I thought about Flora. If Eustace was found guilty and handed over to the diocese, maybe the clouds surrounding the Abbey would part. Maybe she could be happy. I thought about Catherine with a K. Something was weighing down on her, and it was clearly something to do with the night of Catherine with the C's death, the second. Had she seen something? Was she simply too afraid to speak? She certainly left in a hurry after Eustace's little stunt backfired. This too might be resolved if Eustace was ever found to be the guilty one. I reached the end of the courtyard and stood in the shadow of the crumbling outer wall. Goodness, they really should have built a gate here. Anyone could come into the abbey from this direction if they had braved the hill in the cold. It could have been anyone, and yet, the longer I turned over things in my head, the more I thought about the ghost stories people had told earlier in the evening. Cloud of negativity. Maybe it really was a haunting. Eustace had been dressing up as my ghost. But what about Flora's? Adela's? Was every ghost story here a tale born of Eustace's mean streak? I found that hard to believe, as much as that astounded me. Demons and devils, they infested this place. I saw a light in the distance. My heart dropped out of my chest. I scrambled ahead through the open archway, as into the wall, desperate to see what was out there. Out in the moorland this late at night. The rolling hillocks made it difficult to get a good look at from my position. I did my best to quietly hop and sprint forward, keeping myself in the highest position as the rolling field as I could. The light ahead of me kept dipping out of sight. Finally, I got close enough to get a good look at their shape. They were taking the same route the Superior and I had traveled the other day. I froze. The traveler had not seen me, but they were liable to at any moment if they happened to look over their shoulder. Looking back on it, the intelligent choice would have been for me to turn back to the abbey right away, wake the Superior, and catch Eustace, I was assuming, in whatever duplicitous act she was up to. But, perhaps through a mixture of wine and whatever Darcy had given me earlier in the evening, I was not acting intelligently, not to mention the sheer rush of shock I was feeling at the moment. I followed her. It was not easy. It was quite cold out, and even in the moonlight I had to rely on my candle to watch my footing. A strong gust of wind could have extinguished my light, but mercifully it survived the whole trip. What would I have done if she'd turned around? I can't say for sure. I presume I would have blown the candle out and run straight backwards. After an agonizingly long walk, we arrived at the hospitalum. My heart was pounding out of my chest. The figure ahead of me broke left, and then the back door the Superior and I had taken down to the lower level of the building. My first impulse was to watch through the small window I had seen at the top of the dungeon, but I realized how obvious that would make it if either of them happened to look up. I blew out my candle just to make sure I was invisible. Another part of me wanted to simply tackle the mystery nun on the stairs before she could get to James and demand to know what she was doing out here. But, I reasoned, it would likely be more useful to hear what was going on to talk about. Were threats going to be made? Would I learn some earth-shattering secret that would illuminate the conspiracy I was working to unfold? I stood as close to the window as I could, while still feeling reasonably out of sight. This, frustratingly, made it impossible to see what was happening. I was hopeful that the sound would carry, but they spoke quietly, and the echo made it impossible to discern anything meaningful. I could at least make out that the tenor of the conversation was calm. I had been worried that I was about to overhear an intense argument or violent threats, but whatever James and this mystery liaison had to say to each other, it never rose above a dull whisper. I wanted very badly to take a peek through the little window, but the moonlight was such that anyone passing in front of the opening would be supremely obvious. The conversation grew quieter, and I became worried that they had grown suspicious. Eventually, I made out a sigh of resignation. I suddenly realized that if the conversation came to a close while I was still here, I would have to follow the person I was spying on back to the Abbey, as I was now without candlelight. I did not want to further risk being caught following this person. I crept away from the wall I had been pressed up against, and then began to sprint back towards the Abbey. I hoped, anyway. It was very dark outside. There was enough moonlight to see the general shape of the ground in front of me, but little else. I ran as I had never ran in my entire life. I was out of breath quickly, and soon after that I could feel a sharp pinching pain in my side. I stopped every now and then to collect myself, making sure not to change a direction of an accident. I didn't even know if I had started running in the right direction. I just knew that further adjustment would surely result in disaster. I had never run like this before, and it was making me aware of the muscles and bones I had never realized existed. My inner thighs felt stretched and ready to snap. My chest grew tight. Whenever I pushed myself particularly hard, that pinching pain returned harder with a pulsating rhythm that I could feel under my skin, as if lute strings inside me were being plucked. Bodies are truly disgusting things, aren't they? Miraculously, it seemed I had aimed true. I could see the Abbey's walls ahead of me. I had veered a little somewhere along the route, but not as significantly as I had feared. I slowed my sprint to a canter and then eventually to a limping walk. I made it through the archway I had walked through earlier, and then my knees gave out. I fell to the ground, completely exhausted. I rolled into the grass next to me and attempted to get to my feet, but I was spent. I retched a few times. Groaning, I made it up on all fours. Black bile spilled out of my mouth into the grass with another heave. I realized that it was mostly wine I was expelling. Sore and sickly, I was truly pathetic to behold. I could feel my body giving up. I struggled to remain awake. I couldn't just pass out here, but...
Edwig? What are you doing out here?
I scrambled to my feet. Catherine with a K was standing in the archway, looking concerned. Oh, I couldn't sleep, so I went for a walk around the Abbey. Must have pushed myself too hard.
Goodness. Do you need any help?
She was smiling, but she looked rather peculiar. She held her hands behind her back, a rigid pose I'd never seen her stand in before. No, thank you, though.
I see. Well, have a good night.
Catherine with a K? What were you doing?
The same thing you were, of course. I can never sleep after a night of Misericorde drama.
What did you and James talk about? I felt a surge of bravery. We were alone, and it was the middle of the night. She could not weasel out of this one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Catherine with a K? Please. She sighed deeply.
Listen, you must promise not to tell anyone about this. How do you know about James, anyway?
I asked the superior to introduce us. Since I was replacing Catherine with a C, the second, as chronicler, I wanted to know what I was stepping into. He told me he didn't kill her, and then he told me that you could vouch for him.
Ah.
We stood in silence for a moment.
And you believe him?
I do.
And what do you stand to gain from helping him exactly?
It just seems like the right thing to do. I wouldn't want to occupy a position I had lingering questions about. Catherine with a K nodded, looking less confident than I'd ever seen her.
Very well. I can certainly tell you he did not kill her.
Really? How? He mentioned something about his tunic?
What did he tell you?
That was more or less the whole of it. I was trying to ask you for details in the Misericorde.
No. I knew he was not wearing a tunic when Catherine II was found.
How?
Because he was with me.
And he didn't slip away?
No. I'm quite sure of that.
Where were you?
In my dormitory room.
Really? Why? Oh,
Hedwig, this is humiliating enough. Please don't make me say it.
What? I'm confused.
Oh, my goodness. This would be precious if I didn't feel so, well, mortified.
All I could offer her in response was a blank expression.
Hedwig, James and I we had a relationship.
What?
A physical relationship.
What?
I know he did not kill Catherine because we had been fucking. Is that conclusive enough for you? Is that what you wanted to hear? Hedwig? Are you?
My energy had finally dried up completely. My knees gave way. I saw a smear of stars, and then black. So even though James was in one scene this whole volume, I took him because I did not know if Catherine with the K and James's relationship will be a focal point in the future. So in case that happens, I decided to take James for those possible scenes if they ever interact more. It did make the interview scene a bit awkward though.
Yeah. Hedwig! Hedwig!
Huh?
There she is! Thank goodness! Thank you for your assistance, Moira.
What happened?
I was on a walk to the privy and found you passed out on the path.
Huh? Wait, no.
Oh dear. She's still delirious. I'm beginning to worry the thin mountain air isn't very good for her. Do you have any dried fruit around here? Yes. One moment.
I was lying on the floor in the Superior's office. Moira and Catherine with a K were standing above me, both looking concerned. Moira most especially. Catherine with a K's concern went beyond my well-being.
Do you remember what happened before you fainted, Hedwig?
Catherine with a K and I were talking and...
No. That was after I found you. Moira, I'm quite worried about this.
The Superior returned with a small wooden bowl. Moira plucked a small dried berry from it and crouched down to feed it to me. Okay, so I should have done this last episode, but who was in the Misericorde tonight? It was Adela?
Are we counting Angela? And are we counting Darcy?
No, because
And are we counting Eustace?
No, because I'm trying to determine who Catherine with a K would not want to overhear talk about the tunic. And I don't believe Darcy, Eustace, or Angela were in the Misericorde at the time of that scene. Eustace was about to barge in, but she was not there yet. So she might have heard...
I personally would not count out Eustace simply because she said, "Let's not talk about it here," and then Eustace in the armor barges in and to stop asking questions.
That is a good point.
So,
that is a good point.
there could be some hidden passage chicanery going on.
But I think I'm more intrigued about why Catherine with a K would be hesitant to tell people, would be hesitant to tell Hedwig in that situation. Catherine with a K did not know Eustace was there. So I think if it was Eustace that she was trying to avoid talking in front of, that would not be a factor, and she would have been upfront about it. So it was...
That's true, but also if you know the walls heaviers, then the people who aren't there might be the people who you don't want to overhear. Because those are the people you don't have eyes on and might be eavesdropping from just the other side of the wall.
That's a good point.
But to answer your question, it was Adela, Charity, Flora, Margaret, Catherine, who else?
Moira?
Hedwig, obviously. Moira. Yeah.
Moira was playing chess with Adela, I think. No, she was dancing, I think. So, out of those, who would Catherine with a K be suspicious of?
Charity.
I partly bring this up because it strengthens my suspicion of Moira. And I'm just gunning for her at this point. I feel like Catherine with a K trusts Margaret. I think that she wouldn't mind Margaret knowing. Margaret seems like her closest friend in the Abbey, and I don't feel like Margaret would mind too much. I don't think Flora would really care either, but I don't think Catherine with a K would want Flora to know regardless. It wouldn't be something she would try to hide from Flora, but I don't think it's something she would outright tell her either. I don't know too much about Adela's relationship with Catherine with a K. They don't interact too much. Adela's whole personality is just being smart about being a big fan of war and battle and swords and tactics and strategy. So she gets in the scuffle a lot with Angela, but she doesn't really interact with too many people outside of that. She interacts with Marta for the sherry. Catherine with a K doesn't interact with Moira too much either besides these points, but Moira seems like a bubbly person who would just be easygoing with everybody. I don't see a reason for Catherine with a K to... So, Catherine with a K to hide anything from Charity. So, we know that Moira was very strategic. She is good at chess, she could do it with Maiden's Rules, and even without Maiden's Rules, she drew against Adela, who is this master strategist, apparently. So, we know that she's smart and conniving.
Because you're really passionate about chess does not make you good at chess.
That's a fair point, but I think she was also...
go on.
I think she was also told to be, like, the long-running champion. I think the only person to kind of beat her was Flora, and maybe Moira at that night. But she said that Flora cheated, so I'm not sure how legitimate that one was.
Exactly. Meanwhile, we don't know a single interaction between Charity and everyone else. She's kind of a mystery. We've had, like, 2 interactions with her.
Yeah, Charity is very just kind of there. I think they mentioned at one point that she and Marta like to go for morning walks together, which makes sense because they're the 2 oldest people there. So we know that she likes to go for morning walks with someone. I don't remember who it was, but I think it was Marta.
Who's to say?
Charity has a grudge against Angela, but that's like everybody. Charity seems to be friendly towards Moira. Another thing about Moira is that she was hesitant to gossip about herself, which that wording just boggles my mind a bit. I'm willing to gossip about others, but not about myself. And it just seems odd that she wouldn't delve much into her, especially since she seems like the kind of person who would do that. She seems like the kind of person who'd be willing to share things. She doesn't seem closed off about her past. She doesn't seem like she would be closed off about her past. So what is she hiding?
That's fair, but counterpoint, if you're just telling someone about yourself, it's not gossip. Because the whole point of gossip is it's hard to tell if it's true or not. If someone's just telling you something about themselves, it's not exactly gossip.
Which is why I was a bit confused why she worded it that way. I don't want to gossip about
she
myself.
Said, go ask Catherine when you ask her about the thing you wanted to talk to her about. Or go ask Eustace when you make up the apology, or whoever it was.
Interesting. I don't know. I'll keep that in the back of my head. This has been like a little topic that I've been...
I think you do know you slippery little snail.
Not for this particular one. Moira plucked a small dried berry from it and crouched down to feed it to me. That, I did know about the whole, Eustace mocking using the symbolism to, scare Hedwig thing. I did know that Eustace keeps claiming that the goat was not there. She did put the sword on fire, but she claims that the goat was not there. So I did kind of like lead you down that a little bit to think that there was a little connection between there. But it seems like the goat part was entirely in Hedwig's head. Eustace is very confident that there was not a goat there and that she did not behead a goat, but she did light the sword on fire with oil. So that was pretty interesting.
I'm not buying it.
Alright, fair enough. Moira plucked a small dried berry from it and crouched down to feed it to me.
Something sweet might help at least. So, you were on a walk, Hedwig? You look exhausted.
Yes, I was unable to sleep.
Sleep deprived. Of course. That explains the confusion. Yeah. Yes, it would. Thank God you went to the privy when you did, Catherine. I don't particularly love that phrasing, but yes.
The berry Moira had given me was definitely sweet and delicious, although I wasn't really sure how that helped. Nonetheless, I was lucid enough to understand that Catherine with a K was signaling to me that the information that she had shared with me was not something she wanted to be discussed in front of Moira and the Superior. Begrudgingly, I played along. Yes, I remember now. I was restless after what happened at the Misericorde and went out for a walk to clear my head. I think I probably had too much to drink.
Oh dear. What happened in the Misericorde? Nothing you need worry yourself with, Superior. Just our typically womanly exploits.
The Superior sighed, but did not push the subject.
Well, thank you, Catherine, at any rate. God only knows what would have happened to poor Hedwig if you hadn't found her. And thank you, Moira, for being on hand to help her. I was on my way to the privy as well, when Catherine found me.
What do you mean? What? No. That's why you're here? Okay.
God forbid women who spent the whole night drinking have to go to the bathroom.
Okay, but I forgot about this. I thought the reason they fetched Moira was because she's the infirmer, she's the doctor. But she's just like, oh no, I was going to the restroom. So they didn't go and fetch Moira, they just ran into her. I thought they were like, go get Moira, we have a dead nun, and we have a drunk nun passed out, and we need the infirmer.
Counterpoint, read the last 3 words of that sentence again.
When Catherine found me?
Yes.
So you're saying that Catherine with
Yeah.
So you're saying that Catherine with a K was on her way to find Moira, and Moira just happened to be on the way to the bathroom.
I mean, yeah. Once again, she spent the whole night drinking. I know these other 2 nuns were not on the way to the bathroom. The privy, as it were.
Did Moira have much to drink? How much did Moira drink? I don't remember her drinking that much.
Less than Catherine and Flora.
Yeah, Catherine with a K and Flora did. Margaret definitely did as well. I don't know if Adela or Moira did. I think Charity did. Charity drank a little, but she wasn't drunk. I think she was around the same as Margaret, just in a feel-good mood. Hedwig was definitely drinking. I don't remember.
Everyone had a little, even Angela.
I feel like Angela left before the wine was brought out, right?
No, because they had that whole banter where Catherine was like, "Oh, I'll serve Flora second
That's
to last
right.
to prove I don't discriminate against the people by age, and then
You're
I'll
right.
serve Angela."
That's a good point. What
she says,
luck?
"What luck? A strange but welcome miracle."
Thank you, Superior.
Well, I see no reason for you all to be crowding my floor at this late hour. Off to bed with you, all of you. Of course.
I was pulled to my feet by my would-be saviors and guided toward the door.
Oh, and Hedwig? If you don't mind, I'd appreciate you checking in tomorrow after service. Just so I can confirm you're well.
Yes, Superior. Once through the door, I was able to move with my own strength. I was sore all over, but I could walk at the very least. The three of us walked in silence to the cloister, towards the stairs to the dorms. Moira let out a lilting chuckle at one point, and I could hear Catherine with the K exhale wearily through her nose. I had half a mind to slap Catherine with the K the way I had Eustace. I was not sure I would ever look at her the same way again. I felt ashamed to be protecting her dirty little secret for her, and even more ashamed that I had seemingly instinctually agreed to do so. What was this place turning me into? I realized that I was still carrying the pricket looped around one of my fingers. I was stretched so thin I had not thought of the whole walk back. I placed it back in the mantle when we arrived in the dormitory.
Well, good night. Again. Good night, Moira.
Yes. Good night, you two. And thank you. We were all speaking in low whispers so not to wake up anyone else.
Don't mention it, silly. I actually would appreciate it if you truly didn't mention it. If Flora or Margaret hears about this, I'll never hear the end of it.
Mention...
The evidently miraculous convergence of Moira and I's bodily needs. Privy humor is the lowest of the low. Naturally, Flora finds it uproarious.
We split up and went to our separate rooms. Catherine with a K had to open and close hers with great care, as it was still creaking terribly. I sighed and collapsed face first in bed. That creaking door is going to become a plot point at some point.
They're gonna do like a Secret Santa thing, and then Hedwig's gonna have to go on a quest to the village for WD-40. It'll be great.
I sighed and collapsed face first into my bed. I didn't even have the energy to undress, and I was asleep before I hit the pillow. I dreamed of soldiers chasing me with pikes. Weird dream.
Especially now that you know no one actually wants to kill you. Alright, I'm gonna take a quick restroom break. I'll be right back.
Alright. So, how's the non-existent chat doing? Good? Good. I'm just having lots of theories going on. I have played this first volume before, but it was a couple months ago, so I don't remember all of it. And I was also doing it in the background to other tasks, like playing video games. I had it on the background, so I wasn't fully paying attention to everything. I paid attention to like scenes here and there, but I would not pay attention constantly. So it's interesting reading it for myself and catching on small details I didn't notice before. I'm just so suspicious of Moira. She's just I don't know.
I have returned.
Welcome back.
I am welcome back.
I awoke feeling even worse than I had when I had fallen into bed. The soreness in my body had escalated so to stiffness. I groaned aloud so soon as to realize I was no longer sleeping. I wouldn't take my chances with the armies in my dreams. I could hear people shuffling outside my door. I was somewhat surprised that I had even managed to wake up at my usual hour, considering how late I was up and how exhausted I felt. It was all I could do to roll off the bed and stumble out of the room to join everyone for service. I could barely stay awake through the whole thing, which made me feel wretched. I had already foregone prayer the whole set of the hours. If I could not even make it through these compromised services, who was I?
Wig! How are you feeling?
How on earth could she be so chipper after a night like ours? Fading, I must admit. She giggled and offered a sympathetic expression. I gave her a perfunctory smile back, and then took off in the direction of the Superior's office for our requested meeting. I made it there before the Superior did. She was a few minutes behind me, no doubt the last to leave the chapel.
Goodness, Hedwig. You know you can always skip morning service if you feel ill.
I'm quite alright. She unlocked the door and ushered me inside hastily.
So,
yes, you're Superior?
I do hope that you have some news for me, even with your little tumble.
Yes, as a matter of fact. She nodded with faint approval and urged me to sit down. I did so gratefully. She in turn sat in her green chair. I was able to ask Catherine with a K about the tunic. Indeed, she can vouch for James.
That's fantastic news. What did she say? How did you approach the subject?
As the evening wore on, things got looser and looser. I simply asked the question at an opportune time. In my head, I was navigating through a thick fog. I was unsure of how much information to divulge to the Superior to spare her the embarrassment of hearing it, and me the embarrassment of having to say it.
Is that all? You seem a little worse for wear. I heard whispers of things getting rather heated.
How so?
Well, Angela was in here complaining about something or other at one point.
Yes, there was a bit of a kerfuffle at one point.
I see. She finds making friends rather difficult, I'm aware. Is that all?
Nothing relevant. No. She raised an eyebrow. No, that's not true. Eustace knocked on the door at one point later in the evening, dressed as a ghost and waggled a sword at me as some sort of mean-spirited joke. And then I slapped her across the face. Quite hard. And then I think Flora might be plotting to run away, which would be horrible. We have to help her see reason. And then after the evening I fell apart, I couldn't sleep, and I went out for a walk to clear my head, but I saw someone walking towards the hospitalum, and I followed them, and then it was Catherine with a case. I heard her talking to James, but I couldn't quite hear what they were talking about. And then I ran all the way back into the dark and collapsed on the path. And then Catherine with the K found me, and that's when I asked her about it. And she admitted it. The thing about the tunic, she said she saw him that day without one, and both of the superior's eyebrows were raised now.
Well.
And then
Yes?
I realized I was panting. Nothing. Sorry, I got carried away. That's everything.
So, Catherine with a K spoke with James in the middle of the night? How odd. I fear that this does not allay my suspicions.
No?
He claims Catherine can vouch for him about this tunic of his that is supposedly able to clear his name. But if they are conspiring in secret, how do I know the whole idea wasn't simply concocted out of thin air?
I suppose there's no way of knowing.
I applaud your investigation work, but I'm afraid this puts us right back where we started. Not without further corroboration, anyway. As this is tainted testimony at best.
I had a strong suspicion that Catherine with a K had been telling the whole truth to me last night. She had been very reluctant to speak on it, and her strong hints in this very office that the embarrassing truth was my secret to keep did not feel like they were part of some grander lie. Surely, if that was the case, she would be spreading the lie further afield, but I couldn't bring myself to tell that superior. It was embarrassing. It was based entirely on my personal feelings, and if by some small chance Catherine with a K was capable of murder, I would not want to make myself her next target.
Tainted testimony in particular, considering Catherine's circumstances. Unless there's another detail here that makes you find this story more believable.
She had reneged me. Reneged me? Reneged me?
Yeah, I had reneged.
I had reneged on my promise to Catherine with a K to not speak a word of the night's events to anyone else already. But something else was keeping me from sharing the final, perhaps critical element of her story. I felt dirty just thinking about it, and I did not want to even imagine what Catherine with a K might do if she suspected that I had blabbered to her about her liaisons with James. Especially, I remembered with a shiver, while she still had access to a sword. Even if she was innocent of Catherine with a C's murder, I worried I might become her victim if I used this information against her.
Hedwig, tomorrow I would like you to travel to the village with some companions.
These words felt like a cold bucket of water. The village?
Indeed. Do not worry. As I said, you will not be alone. I realize it will be a new experience.
Catherine with a K will be included, I presume?
Goodness, no. Moira and Eustace. That would be fine.
Not Eustace, please.
Now, we can't have you two falling out over this. You must work together. I'm sure I do not need to remind you that you must maintain a healthy relationship with everyone.
Must I?
Of course! For heaven's sakes! Don't complain. It's not that often someone gets to go down to the village. A trip out with Eustace might do both of you some good. Get some fresh air with your compatriots and commiserate over a change of scenery. It was not that long ago she was in here speaking quite highly of you, I might add.
Well, what is it we would be doing in the village?
There are people there who would be able to provide some insight into how seriously we should take James and Catherine's insistence. Goodness, it's a shame you weren't able to hear what they were talking about. It would save us a lot of time.
I weighed my options. As stressful as it was to imagine, I decided that a trip beyond the bounds of the Abbey would be preferable to risking Catherine with a K's rage. Besides, the Superior seemed quite adamant about the idea. I shouldn't have followed her in the first place.
I certainly wouldn't have suggested it, but it was brave of you. You're beginning to think on your feet. Perhaps the chess lessons are helping.
Quite possible. I really spun that chessboard around.
Very good. Anyhow, knowing that Catherine with a K and James are in communications complicates things. Or perhaps we can glean some idea of whether she knows something and is helping James out of guilt. Guilt is a word for it. Or if something more sinister is going on.
I'm afraid I don't follow.
Hedwig, do you not know why Catherine with a K left the comfort of the village?
She did mention it last night in the Misericorde. Something about local politics. She offended the wrong person or something like that. The Superior let out a surprising chortle.
I see. Well, I suppose that is not untrue. Still, I am rather surprised. I would have expected the rumors around her to be one of the first things you heard.
What rumors?
That Sister Catherine murdered her husband.
I nearly choked on air. She... what? The Superior held up her hand gently.
I do not believe it for an instant, to be clear. In fact, I think it's very likely that this is precisely the kind of story the people she expressed contempt for would concoct to harm her reputation. She was in a competitive business, you understand. Or rather, her husband was.
I tried my very best to keep up with the conversation, although my throat felt bone dry. It was difficult to get the words out. And what was that?
The vineyard, of course. You might see it on your way down the mountain. It's a particularly good one, I might add. At least for this country. All of our wine uses grapes from the slopes of Limbarrow.
So you think that her husband just died and she was blamed?
I have no proof, but it's more believable than her killing someone. But this is Sister Catherine we are talking about. The first, with a K. The Sister Catherine of a few years ago, at least. No. Her story is that the man fell down the stairs, and some unscrupulous hawks saw an opportunity to stop her from inheriting a fortune.
So, in the village...
Speak with the townsfolk. I am curious to see how they feel about Catherine now. The one with the C. The first.
One with the
Perhaps
K.
there is a pattern you're... Yes, that's why I clarified with the first. I can't keep these things track. Yes, I know. I can't keep track of these things. I'm this close to start referring to her, the one with the K, as Catherine. You have no idea how annoying this is.
I thought you believed in Catherine. Surely this is a waste of time.
Oh, that does have a nice ring to it. I do believe that Catherine, the one with the K, the first, etc., is innocent of murdering her husband. But I must confess it is purely a gut feeling. Look around for me. See if there's any evidence to support that claim. It would be good to show the bishop some support from a source who is not also accused of a similar crime.
You're worried Catherine and James are conspiring. You think they might have killed her? What, together?
Thanks to your intrepid investigation last night, we can no longer rely solely on them vouching for each other. We have a responsibility to follow up on their connection. No matter how I feel. Perhaps I have been played for a fool. We'll concoct a simple cover story for your visit. Bringing some finished wine, or some other goods down to share, perhaps.
My heart sank. I had just put Catherine in harm's way, it seemed. Although, perhaps I was in harm's way around Catherine. This was all too much to put in my head at once. Just say it, a voice inside my head murmured. Just tell the Superior that Catherine has been. Well, what should I ask? Who should I speak to?
Just speak to whomever will give you their time. Bring the topic up carefully. You're very good at that. And just get a sense.
I am really known for my... I forgot the word. Subtlety. A sense.
A sense. Anyway. This is good. We are making progress. And I really enjoy this new name for Catherine. Very much. It really helped clarify. You are doing quite well for yourself, I must say. You are quite resourceful.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a whole, theory that I heard about the names of Catherine with a K and Catherine with a C being used, for misinformation. Thinking they were talking about one, but then referring to the other because they just didn't clarify things, and that's going to be, a huge point in the mystery of maybe Catherine with a K was supposed to be the one murdered, but they got the wrong person or something like that, because we don't know who exactly the murderer is. Maybe it was a hitman or assassin or something. So maybe they got the wrong Catherine, and it's a whole theory thing that's been floating around. I'm not too invested in it, but it is an interesting point to bring up why they have the same name, other than just comedic reasons.
Yeah. Also, I'm shocked you didn't remember that I referred to her as Catherine both yesterday at the end of stream and today at the beginning of stream.
I did notice it, I just didn't point it out.
That's fair.
I was like, he's just being goofy. But I didn't...
Yeah, I've made the mistake too many times. I'm sick of it. It's a good thing one was killed. If they were both alive, I would not tolerate it.
Yeah, that's very fair. Thank you. But does Eustace have to come with us if I really am going to do this village trip?
As I said, it sounds like an opportunity to mend whatever bridge between you has already broken. I see no reason to keep you apart.
All I wanted to do was sigh. I was pouting just a little, I will admit.
I will meet you halfway. I shall send word to both Moira and Eustace for you, so you will be spared at least one awkward conversation. Fair enough?
Thank you. She sighed and rested her chin on her hand.
Sometimes I wonder how I manage. It sounds like you could pen a whole book about the drama happening beneath my station this week alone. I look forward to reading your chronicles one day.
It's not so bad.
So I thought. Until... well...
She made a cutting gesture across her neck with a grim expression on her face.
I used to think it was good to let these things be, and let the sisters sort things out amongst themselves. But... could I have prevented Catherine with the Sea's murder if I had taken more active interest in the whispers that would stop after I turned the corner?
Surely, I don't know.
I do not like meddling. and now circumstances have conspired as such that I must meddle greatly. Through you, alas.
I noticed a faintest whiff of wine in her breath as she exhaled a deep sigh.
I'm afraid I am in no state for chess this morning. Have a productive rest of your day, Sister Hedwig.
I stood up from my chair and clasped my hands together, holding them out half-heartedly. Thank you, Mother Superior. I will endeavor to do so. She nodded and beckoned to the door. I left swiftly. I could feel the pressure building in my head, beginning to match the aching in my body. I groaned aloud and rolled my head around my shoulders. It was a lovely morning, at least. A wispy cloud of fog had settled over the grass in the cloister, and sunbeams reflected out of it at pleasing angles as I walked past.
Hedwig dear, good morning!
Marta and Charity were seated at the wooden chairs at the edge of the grass, looked perfectly relaxed. I smiled wearily and waved at Marta, who beckoned me closer. In trouble, were we? Oh no, the Superior just wanted to report on how I was feeling. I fainted last night on my way to the privy.
Oh dear, we had quite a night, didn't we?
Charity's been telling me all about it.
There was a dark glint in her eye that I did not altogether appreciate. I feel ashamed. Don't be.
Lord knows I've wanted to smack Eustace more than once. She can be a pompous little thing, and she deserves it for scaring you girls witless. Still, I didn't know you had it in you. Nor her, for that matter.
I had no idea either. I've never struck anyone before. I abhor violence.
Ha! Don't we all? Until it suits us. Just try not to make a habit out of it.
She says as if she never did.
My fighting days are behind me, I'm afraid. This is much more difficult to bring people upright with only harsh words. I've tried hitting some sense into these women if it hasn't taken. I've tried pleading with them about the virtues of living well, and it never stuck. I'm afraid, then, that I must instead simply appeal to your good nature, Hedwig. I don't want you to end up like Catherine, with a C.
Oh, goodness. I apologize for offending you.
You didn't. She didn't, did she, Marta?
No, not at all. I'm just reminded of Catherine with the C's flirtations with a particular kind of apologia. Nobody really abhors violence.
I failed to turn the other cheek, as it were.
As I would have as well in your position. Oh, Marta, you're just in one of your moods.
I am starting to realize that I have been in one of these moods since Catherine with a C was taken from us. I'm not sure I will ever fully recover.
As if that's your fault.
Was it not? I gave up on her. Her gift for persuasion was too much for me. I let her get away with too much. Catherine with a C's silver tongue stayed my hand too often. Do you remember when she locked Flora in that box?
Oh my, yes.
What happened?
One day, I went down to the cellars a little early, and I heard an alarming racket coming from one of the crates we used to be packing for wine bottles. I opened the lid, and what did I find inside? Poor little Flora, gasping for air, curled up so tight I had to enlist two sisters to help pull her out.
It was a very strange morning.
Flora, of course, would say nothing. She was very loyal to Catherine with a C. Catherine with a C, though, confessed to everything almost immediately. She admitted that it was all a practical joke that had gone too far, and that she hadn't known that the lid was too tight to let air in.
Why on earth would she think to put Flora in there in the first place?
Only God knows. Flora adored Catherine with a C, and they at least shared a wicked sense of humor.
Was
Laura all right?
She was beside herself for a day or two.
And took it out on me, if you can believe it. Goodness. Catherine of the Sea thought, or knew perhaps, that she could get away with anything. Well, why did she confess so quickly then?
That's a good point. Why did she, Marta?
You see? Even in death, she could bargain her way out of scrutiny. She didn't admit to anything because she felt ashamed. She admitted it because she had already gotten away with it. Laura had been found safely. No harm was done in Catherine with the Sea's eyes. Another lesson avoided. Off she went to her merry way, with nothing but a minute's awkward conversation as penance.
I think you're being a mite too harsh.
Who would punish her? Not the superior. Lord knows nobody would break the unspoken agreement to cut her out of the affairs that Catherine with the Sea orchestrated. Would I punish her? I should have, but no. It was too late by then. I was already under her spell.
Punishing her wouldn't have changed what happened to her.
Would it not? I don't know. I don't believe in random chance. All flowers are seeds sown. I would have shaped her into someone great. Instead, I gave up trying. Catherine with the Sea is my greatest failure.
I know you don't mean all that. I know you miss her.
I do. Despite it all, I do. Charity had started getting glassy-eyed. Marta reached over to cut her plump wrist with her own bony fingers.
Now. No getting wistful in front of poor Hedwig. I'm sure she has better things to do than listen to two old bats whinge.
Where are you off to, Hedwig? There's another chair around here somewhere. Ah, behind you. Oh, I'm off to the library, actually. Marta's dark mood suddenly hadn't sold the idea of the most appealing way I could imagine spending my morning. Chronicling can wait, surely.
It's not like you're gonna forget last night anytime soon, eh?
In the end, I did not need much convincing. The longer I could put off running into Eustace, the better. Even if Marta was feeling particularly sour. I brought the spare chair over and sat down for more conversation. So, aside from last night's escapade in the Misericorde, how have you been doing? Very well. Very well. I mean, there's a lot to get used to, but I'm adjusting.
Is there anything still confusing to you about the outside world?
Oh, loads, I'm sure. But I'm carrying along. I did learn that there was a war going on, and that was quite a shock.
Oh, that old thing feels like it's been going on for most of my life.
It used to be a bit more of a worry, but these days it's exhausting to even think about.
It was a little more concerning when, good Lord, Hexham was well over 20 years now, wasn't it?
And Hedley. We were a little more worried when those were going on. A bit closer to home, those were.
You would have been here in 64, Hedwig.
Just about, I think. Were you as well? I do not like talking about myself.
Not far. I was in the abbey across the valley and down the hill. Bourne-Grove. I moved around a lot in those days. Durham, Richmond, Ripon.
What side of the war were we on?
I wouldn't worry about that.
You'd be hard-pressed to find any strong opinions on the war here, I'd reckon. They're fighting over who gets to be king. That's well above my opinion.
The church is above all those things. There are petty, worldly squabbles in the end.
Even though the royal bloodline is anointed by God?
That may be so, but Men have found so many ways to bicker over the specifics of what God has said.
Too right, too right.
What about you, Charity? Have you always been here at Limbero?
For a long time, yes, but not forever. I got my start in Bone Grove, actually, and followed Marta here when she transferred. We were too good of friends not to go together, isn't that right?
Marta had a thin smile on her face.
Oh, what a nice story.
Indeed. Have you been making many friends with the girls your age?
The girls? This felt like a patently ridiculous way to describe a group of women I assumed were mostly in the 20s and 30s, but perhaps I'll understand why I'm Marta's age.
I worry that I am losing more than I am making. I'm sure that's not true.
I know for a fact Moira is quite taken with your presence. And Darcy, for that matter.
And we don't invite just anyone to sit with us.
That's right.
I smiled and leaned back in my chair. I was hard to get comfortable when my body still felt bent completely out of shape.
Well, thank you. I should probably get back to work. Godspeed.
We were on your side. God bless her, but it was a mean thing Eustace did.
I stood up slowly and offered Charity an appreciative smile as I left. So, I should just say this outright for everyone in the audience. I did not play this game yet. I watched a Let's Play of it. I watched a playthrough by 80% Relatable to Queers Play. They are amazing. Go watch them. They're getting where a lot of my theories were coming from when I was playing first time. In one of their videos, they mentioned having a theory that the prank Catherine with a C did and Flora in the box was one of Flora's escape attempts from the Abbey. And that's what the whole... And Catherine with a C was covering it up. I found that to be pretty interesting. I don't know if it's entirely true. I mean, obviously I don't know if it's entirely true, but I don't know if I entirely buy it. I feel like it would align with certain things and would explain why Flora would still respect Catherine after the prank. But it's just... I feel like there are some conflicting details about it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm also not convinced. I mean, obviously things can change after you've been locked in a box overnight, but why would she be trying to bang on it and escape if she
Because
asked to be locked in it?
because she mentioned that the seal was so tight they were running out of air. So she was banging on it because there was just no air left in the casket and her escape attempt failed. So she would rather live in this abbey than die in the box.
To be fair, no matter how long she's in the box, we don't know if she's alive or dead until we open it.
No, whatever. Yeah, Schrodinger. I made my way upstairs, dreading what the rest of the morning was going to look like with Eustace across the room from me. But it turned out that she was not there. Either she had finished her work while I had been dawdling, or she had let her own discomfort get the better of her and do what I wasn't strong enough to do, and simply not show up. I sighed and sat down at my desk. I opened up a massive book I was filling with my daily chronicles, but I was unsure what to write. The amount of delicate pruning I would have to do made it difficult to know how to begin at all. Against my better judgment, I was not about to commit Catherine with a K's sin to writing. I didn't particularly want to immortalize my altercation with Eustace, or did I? I considered that extolling these sins might take away from some of the weight from my shoulders. If I was not being entirely truthful to those around me, I could at least be truthful to myself and God. I was being changed in many ways outside of my cell, but I did not want to become a liar. I was no liar, I told myself. I was no thief. I scratched my quill against the page idly as I debated myself to my own head. It was so quiet in the library that the sound seemed to fill the room. It didn't help me decide. As Charity had said, it wasn't like I was about to forget any of this. I closed the book and stood up. I at least had the wherewithal to recognize when no work was about to get done. Eustace still hadn't shown up. I looked towards the bookshelves, the one that seemed to stretch on forever into darkness. Without Eustace here, could I? No. Hurt as I was by her cruel game of dress-up, I had no intention of exacting any more revenge upon her. Slapping her was already beyond the pale. Breaking her library rules would just be petty. Wouldn't it? I found myself in argument with my own reasoning again. They were just books. What right did she have to tell me what to do? Was I so cowed by her that I feared what she might do if I touched her precious books? Set one of them out of order? Oh, hello! Darcy had shuffled into the library carrying a long, hooked staff that I could only assume to be a shepherd's crook. Oh, hello, Darcy. Can I help you? Well, actually, Eustace sent me. Ah. She is feeling under the weather and can't make it to the library today. That's quite all right. I understand. She suggested that I take you with me to watch the sheep today. Oh. Well, I have work to do still, actually, but oh, don't worry about that. You can always do it tomorrow. I'm not always in charge of the sheep. You don't want to miss this. Come on. It's time for sheep. I couldn't say no to her, especially after what Charity had said earlier. Oh, all right then. Darcy beamed and beckoned me to follow her. We went down the stairs towards the cloister. Charity and Marta had left, presumably up to go check on the wine in the cellars. The sunlight was somewhat diminished. The fog was gone, but I could now see rain clouds gathering ahead. We took a right at the bottom of the stairs and continued down the rectory and kitchens. It's a bit of a hike if that's all right. Oh, is it? I'm quite stiff today, I'm afraid. Have you been to the hospitalum? It's more or less the same distance, but this direction. No, I haven't. More lies. But it was either that or explain to Darcy that I had sprinted from the hospitalum last night. What was that I said earlier about not being a liar, though? I'm sure I'll manage, though. We left through another archway in the surrounding wall. I was beginning to wonder what the point of the abbey wall was in the first place. Anyone, it seemed, could come from either direction if they fancied it. For a moment I wondered if it was worth telling the superior that it would be impossible to fairly accuse anyone of murdering Catherine with the sea, when just about any old pervert could have walked into this place. Darcy had not been exaggerating about the walk. On this side of the abbey there was no gentle slopes and hillocks. There were hills, but for the first time it truly struck me that Limborough Tor was more or less a mountain range. We had made our way over impossibly green grass. Wind whipped our robes around. I think Darcy may have been trying to chat, but it was impossible to hear anything clearly over the gusts of winds and flapping fabric. It was truly dizzying up here. I could see the village of the lake on the way to the hospitalum, but they were utterly dwarfed by the hills surrounding them. It was beautiful and terrifying. I had never felt so small. Eventually, we crested a particular sharp incline and paused for a breather. Hands on my knees, doubled over to catch my breath, I noticed a smattering of little white dots against the dark green grass of the slope across from us. There they are! We pressed onward. Eventually the hill smoothed out to a little more manageable degree. By the time we approached the grazing sheep, the land was practically flat. It was as if there were a tiny shepherd on the side of the hill, a tiny shelf on the side of the hill. All right then,
This is my favorite job. You have so many responsibilities. How do you manage? Well, if that's true. But to me, this is hardly a responsibility. Just look at them. She gestured towards the sheep, who had all turned to look at us. They were all chewing grass and seemed to be regarding me with the same kind of disinterest I generally expected from the sisters. They're a bit scary. What? I've never seen any animal up close, and there's so many of them. They are sheep. They are nice. Look, that one already likes you. She pointed behind me with her crook. I turned around and yelped. One of the sheep was standing right next to me, looking up at me while continuing to munch on grass. Eep. You can touch them if you'd like. No, that's... I shan't be doing that. Give it a try. One of the sheep had approached her, and she was patting it on the head gently. I wouldn't say the creature appeared to be enjoying it, but at the very least it wasn't attacking Darcy over it. I held my breath and reached my hand out to touch the sheep closest to me. Hello. I rubbed the top of its head. It didn't really seem to care one way or the other, but I hadn't lost any fingers. So, what do we do? This. We just stand here? Yes. We just want to make sure nothing attacks them or eats them. What would do that up here? Wolves. The words sent a chill up my spine. That's terrifying. It would be, but not many wolves around here anymore. Have you seen a wolf? I have not seen a wolf in a very long time, and just from afar at that. That's comforting. It was not comforting at all. Knowing my luck, I felt like we were doomed to be torn to ribbons by the first pack of wolves Darcy had ever seen up close. Just enjoy them and get some of this lovely fresh air. We were sheltered in the wind on this side of the hill, and the air was cool and damp. The rain clouds, however, still threatened above us. In fact, as soon as Darcy had finished encouraging me to take in the fresh air. Wow! Well, would you look at that? No. I couldn't help but laugh. Yes, just our luck. Just our luck. To be honest, I quite like the rain. I could not remember the last time I had been outside in the rain. In my cell, I had always left the window hatch open a crack when it began to rain, just to catch a bit of fresh scent that followed. Sometimes I would stick my hand out, just to get my hand wet, just to feel something curious and different. I felt so thankful every time I caught a few raindrops in my palm, to be alive, or whenever I felt a sunbeam hit my back, hunched over my writing desk, or when I would catch a fleck of snow and watch it melt into the creases of my skin. That had been enough. That had always been enough for me. I had never wanted to leave. It would have been happy for my whole life in that little room as long as I could see the rain outside my window. I was glad it was raining. I did not want to have to explain the tears rolling down my cheek to Darcy. I like the rain too. Finally, someone who agrees. Well, let's get these little beasties out of the rain, shall we? Darcy began to gently shoo the sheep around her with her staff. She pointed at a rickety wooden structure near the slope of the hill. Try to get them over there. I had no idea what to do, especially around a crook of my own. I sort of gestured to a sheep around me, I suppose. Many politeness would serve me where physically couldn't. Come along, please. Thankfully, it seemed like the flock didn't need me to tell them what to do. Most of the sheep were trotting towards Darcy's structure of their own accord. A few stayed huddled in front of me. I wondered if they were pretending to be herded for my benefit. I made it under the wooden shelter just as it started pouring. Darcy was leaning against her crook, surveying the hills in front of us with a serene expression. I navigated through several unplussed sheep to stay next to her. Good work. So, have you been coming out here every day? Oh, goodness, no. I like to do it, but I am very busy. Moira does it sometimes, and also I think Margaret. Catherine with a C would as well. Our Catherine? That's hard to imagine. Catherine the Second with a C. Ah. They aren't our sheep, strictly speaking. We just like to volunteer, but they are from a village. This is just where they come to for
Transhumans?
transhumans, yeah. What's that?
Oh, well, you have to rotate where sheep graze depending on the time of the year. Normally that would mean James would handle most of the shepherding up here, but, well, you know.
Oh, he's the accused, yes?
Yes.
How horrible. There was a pregnant pause. Do you think he did kill her?
I couldn't say. Angela found him trying to run from the abbey and his cloak was covered in blood. I found it. Did you know that? I didn't even know anything bad had happened. I was busy putting out a fire in the dormitory and only noticed the cart in the distance out of the window.
A fire? This was the first I heard about this detail.
Yes. Someone put too much fuel in the fireplace and it was blowing embers around. More of a nuisance than a danger, but it was getting out of hand. Anyway, all the evidence points to James being the little bastard, but strange things happen around here. I am wary of how simple it all seems.
Like people dressing up as ghosts, you mean? This slipped out before I could register how barbed it sounded. Eustace was Darcy's close friend, and I realized that any story Darcy had been told about last night would have been from Eustace's bespectacled perspective. I was relieved then, when Darcy let out a guttural chuckle.
What am I going to do with you two?
Is she very upset?
She told me all about it. It sounded very sad. And I told her, well, it did sound like what you did was a bit cruel, and then she got mad and went to sleep. She will be fine, I think. Give it a few days.
A few days?
Maybe a week. I can't say for sure.
Is that normal?
Oh, are you not used to getting people to be angry with you?
I'm starting to worry that I will have to get used to it very quickly.
Eustace gets angry very easily. I really would not put too much thought into it. She and Adela avoided each other for a month because Eustace said sherry tasted like trough water. And Adela said, well, how do you know what trough water tastes like? And then a few days later, Adela said that some of the beer we had at luncheon tasted like piss. And Eustace was ready with, well, how do you know what piss tastes like? Catherine with a C made them have a sword fight over it.
Wait, hold on.
With wooden swords.
Oh. Even still.
Yes, Catherine with a C was a bit obsessed with them. She tried to train all of us with swordsmanship at one point. Swordwomen. However, one might say,
why on earth would she do that?
Well, as I am sure you have been notified, there are not very many of us here.
Yes?
And did you know that there was a war going on?
I had heard that.
Well, Catherine with a C wanted us to all be able to defend ourselves, I suppose. Just in case.
Oh, that's rather extreme.
Well, that's a superior. Well, that's what the superior said when she found out about it.
I've heard a lot of stories about Catherine's with a C's interests, but I still would never have guessed that one.
I think we made a certain amount of sense. It was fun to be made a bit uncomfortable when I thought about it longer.
I much preferred it when she was really into winemaking. Or sailing. Winemaking? Goodness. I take it Marta wasn't pleased with that.
On the contrary, Marta was thrilled that someone was interested in it as her. As far as I know, Marta taught Catherine with a C everything she knew. As far as I knew, Catherine with a C. Marta taught Catherine with a C everything she knew, and that Catherine with a C reading about it, more techniques, and so on in the library. And then would tell Marta about the new stuff. And then one day, it just stopped, I suppose. Stopped. The thing with Catherine with a C. Darcy trailed off in an uncharacteristic manner that surprised me just